And probably to start from next week, I'd like to go over the life of Buddha from beginning so that you can know the basic. And of course, we can discuss further too. Yeah, you learned about Buddha's life before, right? How about you? You did in detail or not much? This is scanned over.
A book's worth, yeah. So not a whole lot, but
Not a whole lot. Probably we can go in deep. Yeah, yeah. In the meantime, we can talk about other things too. So I think it's better for us to have that kind of foundation. Have you been, William?
Hi, Ayadafa. Yes, I've been well today. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, yeah. So your wife and daughter enjoy the celebration here?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let us move on to discuss about the Buddhist wisdom, especially the Mahayana Buddhist wisdom that we left off last time. That based on our sutra, the whole sutra. Uh, let's see here. Since sometimes we have. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, I think we can talk later on. So probably William, up to our Lotus Sutra tomorrow, we can talk about the plan for our discussion. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see here. Let me share with you the screen. Okay. So this is the whole sutra, and this is the heart of the Mahayana Buddhist wisdom. That's why it's called Heart Sutra. You decide that before, right? You were here last week. You were here last week. Yeah. So last time we talked much about this, but let's start with William. What do you think? What do you think about why it say that this is the Heart Sutra? That's the most important, one of the most important teaching in Mahayana Buddhist tradition, especially when they talk about the wisdom.
Well, it presents a point where there are a lot of different mind states that people have, or like issues that we're dealing with. And so initially, as we go to practice, we'll all be attracted to some aspect of practice, some part of the teaching that like helps our particular situation. But if we follow that through, like, all roads lead to Rome, eventually this comes to like this deeper wisdom of the limitations of the analytical mind and the interdependence, the oneness of all things. And the Heart Sutra is like a gate for that sort of wisdom, where it's acknowledging the limitations of the systems that bring us to the point of learning the Heart Sutra. So in this translation, I never realized, because I always used the Rochester Zen Center translation, and I never connected that when they're talking about no ignorance, no end of ignorance, nor all that comes of ignorance, no. So I have to say it to get the whole flow. I can't start in the middle and remember it all. But they were talking about the 12 dependent originations. So it addresses like the 12 dependent originations could bring someone to the place, as part of bringing someone to the place of realizing the emptiness of phenomena. But even those are then it's transcended, because all of the distinctions which are made of separating different things and describing individual entities, they're functional to help us up to a point, because it's still like supporting this idea of something having its own independent existence, that there's some sort of permanence or self to it. When if we take the teaching of impermanence and interdependence all the way through, well, then it can't just apply to some things and not other things. It even applies to the Dharma. That on the highest level, the Dharma is emptiness. But it's like how they like in Zen, or how in the Mahamudra, they talk about this too, where like we're initially, when we're meditating, we're kind of holding ourselves still. We're applying an effort to keep the mind from jumping all around. But then at some point, the mind just remains still and an effort is not required. And I think that's a little synonymous to, like, initially our mind, we have so much thinking that the teachings initially introduce a sort of another view that is conducive to moving towards wisdom and extricating ourselves from the troubles associated with our like previous way of thinking. But we can't even attach to those teachings forever, because where, you know, they can bring us to the point where then we can appreciate that the inherent emptiness of those teachings as well. And where, like in the meditation, once the mind comes to a point of rest and then it just like remains still, I mean, not really necessarily remain still. There's like at that point, not stillness or motion, but there's like not either. But the idea, I'm just using stillness as the idea, that the same thing happens with the teachings. Initially, we need to use these teachings to counteract the wrong thinking, but then once the wrong thinking ceases, there's no need for this other stuff to counteract it. And then if we see through all distinctions and we see like the interdependence, the oneness, the impermanence, well, then it's like we've embodied the teachings, we've achieved the fruit of the goal.
Mm-hmm. So you understand the concept of the wisdom now?
Well, if you follow all of it through the end, that ultimately it is just emptiness. The Dharma ultimately is empty.
Okay. Jeanette, you understand? I think you wrap the idea of this one, right? What do you think, Jeanette?
So I understand the Heart Sutra as being the heart of the teachings, and it's like the summary of all the teachings of the Mahayana. It's a beautiful document, I think, that it's just so encapsulate in so few words how everything boils down to being empty, to being interdependent without a self. And so that all of the teachings, whether it's talking about the Four Noble Truths or the 12 links of dependent arising, or it all just boils down to all of it is emptiness, fullness.
Okay. How about you, Teng Thieng? You understand that, Teng Thieng?
Is your question is, do I understand the idea of wisdom, or do I?
Yeah, the idea of wisdom based upon this sutra. You understand that?
Oh yes, yeah, more Thai. The way I understand is to understand the heart sutra is very difficult, but you have to do something in order to understand it.
Mm.
You have to you have to meditate, and then when you read the sutra, after you reading the heart sutra, you have to concentrate on a certain sentence or certain words and try to understand what is this is about.
Mm.
And then I think it takes a lifetime, it take a while to be able to understand it, because you cannot be able to understand it like today or tomorrow. It takes times. Yeah.
You understand this process?
Yeah, I
Mm.
think so. I didn't read any of the second half of it, but I did read that. The only way I can relate to it is obviously I've read 25 pages. I gotta learn how to print that stuff out, but like you know the Greeks in front of it was called the Oracle of Delphi. And the wisest person was they all agreed to Socrates. Socrates said that he was the wisest because he knew that he knew nothing. And I think that that's kind of you can't, it's the wisdom comes from within versus not something that you
Mhm.
can learn. I guess.
Wow, that's nice instance then. Mhm. Yeah, thank you. Vivian, are you there, Vivian? You understand this process, Vivian?
Yeah, I feel like I'm learning a lot from people.
How?
Good.
How much
It's
you understand about this?
From reading it, I feel like my understanding is that like I don't know, the idea of a circle comes up, that like that there's like a bigger picture to everything, whether it's like our five senses or the 12 links of interdependent arising. Like I feel like I'm still really into a lot of different things, but that's kind of my takeaway from reading it the first time.
Okay, yeah. And Stephen, how much you understand about this? Is this understandable? Is confusion? What do you think?
At first, it was somewhat a little bit confusing, but combination of reading this and the other paper, I get the overall idea of it. But as most living human being who is not like a religious teacher, obtaining the Heart Sutra is difficult to get there. It's attainable, of course. And just like I like Jeanette's phrase, it's not emptiness, but it's more wholeness, because the full end goal of this is basically to learn about impermanence, and of course to learn how to um, detach from a lot of things, because most of when you are attached to something as you're living, most of that is causing us suffering, and that's what we're trying to gear away from, is to learn how to attain happiness without many things around us. So, and I think that's what the Heart Sutra is explaining. But of course, there's more detail behind just the phrases right there, and it goes pretty deep, which the paper I thought did a pretty good job of explaining that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, one other thing about life and death was that we have been taught, of course, is to do more good than our current life in order to have a better next life when we come back around as a living being. And the more you do that, and one other thing is, I read somewhere, this was a phrase, I should have jotted it down, but I thought the phrase was just perfect. It was Tibetan Buddhist monk said something about it is worse than any kind of drugs that you take that can pretty much end your life, was basically all the wrong, whatever it is that we learned that is incorrect, the wrong path and all of that is deeply embedded in your mind. And once you learn the correct thing, same thing, it's deeply embedded in your mind and it carries over to your next life. And that's what you want to truly learn to reach nirvana or to the end goal as much as possible, because that's what you want embedded in your mind, because that's what's carrying over life after lifetime. The more all the wrong thinkings and the wrongdoing that we do, that's why the suffering life, we end up, having multiple suffering lives over and over, is because we haven't learned how to overcome it. Now, the Heart Sutra, of course, is getting us to overcome to the correct path to get to nirvana. So, in a general sense, that's my understanding. So, you know about that.
Okay, so there's many levels. Yeah, hi Jack. Yeah, welcome Jack. Would you like to introduce yourself, Jack? Okay. Anyway, so there's many levels. So the first level is that someone don't know how to behave themselves, right? That's why we have the rules. That's why we have the regulation. Like if we want to drive the cars on the road, we have to take a permit and pass the driving test. That's the basic one. And we teach the children, okay, here, this is the thing you need to do, this thing you cannot do, and so forth. So that this type of rules, a law, a regulation can guide us, shape us into certain group of people. We go to the shopping center, we work with someone else, they have some bylaw, we have some rules at the companies. So that's common, so that we can follow that kind of organization, a business to do. That's the thing that's common for us every day. And so the next level is that, yes, let's say what happens if someone gets attached to those who previously, for example, let's say when we're driving the car on the road and somehow it's probably somehow it's happened. Somehow it's just the yellow light, right? And somehow we pass this and the police car siren turn up and they may give us a ticket because we pass, we cross the red line and so forth. But we say, oh, it's just yellow. But anyway, so my point is that if they so strict on that type of rule, it's been a lot of suffering for other people. And now, again, the core of the Buddha teaching is to transform from suffering to happiness, from suffering to peacefulness. That's the core teaching. That's the most important goal for us to know. Whichever teaching here the Buddha provide, it just aim for transform the suffering to the peaceful and happiness. So the wisdom here again that help us to see beyond things instead of attaching to even the good things, even the rules. If we attach to them, we may be the source of suffering. We may create a lot of problems for the people if we're not flexible, if we're not see beyond those rules. The reason why we have those rules. So that's why here, even let's say someone who doesn't want to take a vaccination. And yes, for common people, if we sit around the table with them, it's scary. But that's the choice. We cannot do anything. So if we have that kind of open-minded, yeah, that's a choice. We cannot force them. If they want to take that, that's the body. We can do that. We cannot control. Only we can control our body, our mind, our life. So that's, and plus on the top of that, okay, let's put this way. Some people, they may search or they may investigate something about the past. The reason why someone give them hard times, the reason why someone put them down and so forth. Again, that's a problem too. When they dig back to the past, yes, they can see, oh, this is right, this is wrong, right? This is right behavior, is wrong behavior, or this is the right thing for them to do, or this is the wrong thing for them to do, and so forth. We play around with wrong and right. That's suffering come too. When it's right, yeah, it's we touch you, but when it's wrong, we so frustrated when we may condemn them and so forth. You understand my point? So as much as we play with wrong or right or wrong, good or bad, that's a matter of suffering there. So that's why in this teaching, the Buddha mentioned that forget about those kind of right and wrong, like William mentioned. Yes, for the right understanding and right intention, yes, that's the basic teaching. The Buddha teaches that we need to have good intention. But somehow, if someone's so depressed, yes, the psychologist may tell them, oh, you need to have the positive thinking instead of having negative thinking. If you have negative thinking, you lead yourself to downfall. So that's why psychologists try to encourage that person to think in a positive way. But again, they may be fighting between positive and negative thinking. That's kind of fighting. That's why in the what they call CBT, cognitive behavioral therapies, it's work for some, but not for all. That's why the Buddhist tradition or John John Zinn, he developed what they call mindfulness, cognitive MBCT, cognitive therapies to help, to help those people who have problem with depression. So instead of playing with good and bad thoughts, positive, negative thoughts, just let the thought go. Whichever thought come, just accept and move on. Instead of clinging to good and bad. So I want to talk about this so that we can bring back. If we go beyond that kind of good and bad, positive and negative, we more peaceful. That's why here in this Heart Sutra, the Wisdom Sutra of the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, that we need to see through and beyond, so that we can have that kind of peacefulness and happiness with that kind of wisdom. So in the first one, you have to see through that all five skandhas are equally empty. Empty, we talked about that right before. That means impermanence. That means they don't have the real self. That does mean they don't have any kind of independent entity. So that's what means emptiness. So if we know that, there's not much attachment on ourselves, so that we can be more peaceful. When things come, especially during this modern age, and even during this pandemic, actually last Sunday, I got a phone call from one of my followers in different state, and his son passed away. On Sunday, his son is still young. He's I think in the midst of 20s, and he got a good job in the university. He did the research over there, but somehow he didn't take medicine. I mean, vaccination, and somehow he lost his life. So of course, this is pure heartbroken for the parents because he's the only son. It's heartbroken. But if they can see through this, the five skandha, the body, the thinking, the feeling, and so forth, impermanence, and plus it's time for him to go. It's much easier. It's much more released than, oh, that's my son. They're supposed to stay. He's supposed to stay with me, and so forth. Of course, for common people, it's heartbroken. But in the Buddhist view, if we see that, it's more relief. Yeah, so that's why there's many levels of wisdom, and later, I mean that last week we talked about relative wisdom and conventional wisdom and the ultimate wisdom, right? Relative wisdom in the mean that in the sense that yes, we recognize his impermanence. In this case, the parents, if they see life is impermanent, it's more relief for them. But this is just the conventional or relative wisdom. But in the ultimate sense that we recognize this, there's no real self except a Buddha nature. That's ultimate sense. So, and Stephen, you follow what I tried to explain in the whole express room?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see here. Let move on here. So for in this process, Bodhisattva, that's mean the white statue out there. That's Bodhisattva. So this Bodhisattva practice deeply the insight, and this Bodhisattva recognized as all five skandha are empty. That's with this realization, he overcome all ill beings. You know why? Can you explain why is that after this Bodhisattva discovered the five skandha are empty, he overcome all ill beings? Can you elaborate for this?
Yes. I think we can look at the Four Noble Truths to see how this could be the case, because ignorance is the source of anger and desire, and and those lead to suffering. So then ignorance is going to be the root of suffering, and it's ignorance around the nature of self, and believing that we have a separate entity of self that we need to protect and acquire things to make it better and avoid things that would make it worse. So if we see clearly, or when Avalokiteshvara saw clearly that the things which make up our sense of self, they're all without an inherent thingness. They're all without a separate existence that's independent, but rather they're part of this whole web network of interdependence. And nowhere in there is there a thing that we can call ourself that we have to protect from anything. Or we may be able to say the Buddha nature, but that's not a thing. It doesn't have a set form. So in no longer being attached to the idea of a self, then there's nothing to be attached to, because all attachment comes from this idea of self. It's like the plug in the bathtub has been pulled out, and everything else drains away.
Jeanette, do you understand this passage? Listen, Sariputta. This body says emptiness, and then it says body. This body is not other than emptiness, and emptiness is not other than this body. The same is true of feelings, perception, mental formation, consciousness. Is that understandable, or is it so lofty? What do you think, Jeanette?
Yeah, it's understandable that that the Bodhisattva of compassion is going through the 5 skandhas and seeing that each is impermanent and without a self, and just by this going through the just this process of deduction that without this self, without this sense of myself and others, then there isn't the suffering. There isn't suffering. Without that, it's that sense of opposition to others and mine and yours, and that's all those dualities is what causes so much pain. So that's what I see is happening, is that she is going through all of the different things that we can think of as a thing, or something that we can think of as ourself, and showing that it isn't.
You understand what's my body is self-emptiness and emptiness is body? You understand that? The confusion. What do you think?
Yeah, I understand the scrapping. I'm still stuck on the fact that thing for blood. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna keep that.
What is practical sense? And practical sense are so lofty or so deep?
I just think it's pretty deep, really. And, you pull the plug out, back up all this stuff. It's dozen water's gone. It's like,
Yeah.
That's all. I'm still thinking on that.
Yeah. So, and Stephen, you understand the meaning of why it say body is self-emptiness and it says body is so deep, or it's practical in practical sense?
I briefly understand it. Is it the fact that you're trying to get the point of that we're trying to think more of impermanence and not just like everyone's saying, just not to think of I, or the self only, that everything is only for you. Because you think about that, you're not going to overcome suffering. So you have to think about more of interdependence and impermanence. So that's my taking on it.
You understand emptiness says body, what's mean?
I think from like a practical day to day, it's a good place to rest your mind. Maybe if your mind's giving you too many thoughts, that if you just rest your thought on the fact that it's empty. It's, yeah, you can rest your thinking.
Vivian, you understand what's meant by this body is emptiness? You understand that? It's too hard to understand.
Yeah, I mean, like intellectually, like I'm hearing everyone say it, but like to feel it, I think I need to like meditate on this more, to because what I think about it is just like the ocean, like you're a water molecule in the ocean, but you are the ocean.
Here you have to take the whole picture. So Thang Thiền, you understand that? This body says emptiness and emptiness says body. It's understandable. Turn on the mic, please, Thang Thiền. Thang Thiền, are you there? So his computer is stuck. All right. You can still hear me? Jeanette? Oh, okay. Yeah, his computer.
I can hear you.
His computer is frozen. Yeah.
It's just like Stephen say. Yeah.
What's that? Oh, yeah, he has problem with his internet. Yeah, go ahead, Thang Thiền. You can try one more time. Do you understand that?
Yeah, more practical. So can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
So this is what Stephen says. He said that when you understand that this body is impermanent and you shouldn't be attached to your body. So if you do, you will get suffer. Yeah. Yeah. So this is how I understand.
Yeah, so again, this body is says emptiness means impermanence, right? This body is impermanent. Like I told you the story of that young man, because he didn't take vaccination, he got his life needs of pain, peace. And how about emptiness says his body? How come? We know body is impermanent. How come emptiness is his body? How? Yes.
Oh, because it's impermanent.
Yeah. Okay. So William, so how could you explain this kind of principle to your patient? Okay. So we know this body is impermanent, right? It's understandable. And evidence says is this body. Why is that? How come? Yeah, William, what do you think? How can we explain in the practical sense, in
Yeah.
the sense for everyone can come, everyone can understand, the number of people can understand.
Yeah. I think of this as like if you were on the side of a chasm and you wanted to build a bridge to the other side of the chasm, you might like start by getting a single rope over to the other side. So if you have someone on the other side and you can like shoot a bow and arrow with a string attached to it, and then that string's attached to a rope, and gradually, you know, then once you have a rope over, well, then maybe you can do two, and then maybe you can build a rope bridge. So like with someone who's never been introduced to the idea of form being empty, my, you know, my first approach is just going to be that little string of like, of that first idea of it that's not really going to, you know, it's not going to be able to, most people, I mean, they're not going to like get it and transform immediately. I mean, I don't fully get it in my life. I understand it in like a narrow way. So I would explain it to them as starting with the ideas of, well, you know, what part of your body can you take away and still be yourself? And they, you know, they probably are gonna, you know, they're gonna come down to seeing that, well, maybe the brain, right? The brain is the self then. And it's like, well, but then still, you know, we die and we have no way to know for sure from our direct experience. You know, normal folks, we don't have an ability to know what happens after, but it really appears, I mean, the brain clearly doesn't continue on. So like, what is there in this body that is lasting, that is permanent, that can be the foundation for yourself? And I think some people would be able to get it with that. Another way would be like maybe looking at quantum physics and saying, like pointing out just intellectually that, well, we know with quantum physics that atoms are empty. As we go down to the smaller particles, then they can't really be said to exist or not exist. They're kind of like alternating in and out of existence. So we don't find any self there in matter. So if these smaller building blocks are so insubstantial, then combining them together can't, you know, it can't all of a sudden create something that's substantial. And then also maybe highlighting the fact that the more attached we are to the body as ourself, as a thing, the more we suffer. So highlighting the fact that it's not functional either towards our happiness. And then just depends on what people say in response, like where their mind goes, what questions they have.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, let's put this way, it's so understandable. Okay, so let's say we see the air here, right? Air is empty, right? The air. Okay. Now, when we inhale and exhale, that's the source of our life, right? Now the level is that we born because of union of parents, and we don't know where we really come from. And if we look at the baby, the one that, let's say, were born today, yesterday or last year, they were not here, but because of union of the parents, they here. The condition of that couple, male female union, so that's why they're here. And when they're done, they go. So that's, in one way, yes, we know this physical body is impermanence. So that's what mean by this body is emptiness or impermanence. Emptiness is mean this is like the air. It's like nothingness. It's not the mean that nothingness, but because of condition of the union of the parents, we were here. You understand that? Without the union of parents, we will not be here, or any child that was born today. So that means this first is emptiness. So now because of recognition, we here. We have this physical body. So that's why I say emptiness is not other than this body. You understand now? So we have to see in the big picture, in the whole spectrum, not in the way that, okay, we have to deal with the food, the water, we need to deal with the job and so forth. It's in the whole spectrum. That's why emptiness is not other than this body. The same is true of feeling too. Feeling is impermanent. Our feeling, right? Good, bad, neutral, they come and go. That's what we call impermanence. And on the other hand, they say, yes, feelings of emptiness is feeling the same way with our body too. Because of having this body, that's why we have the feeling, thinking, habit, and so forth. That's about. That's not a level we need to recognize. So that we don't attach to our feeling. We don't attach much to our body. If something happened to us, we don't attach to even our thinking too. Many people, they attach to the feeling of in some type of food, or have good feeling with that food. If I don't have that, I can enjoy the food and eat it. Like someone like to have spicy food, right? Or someone like to consume sweet food and so forth. That kind of attachment. But if we recognize, oh, they come and go, the impermanence, the feeling is impermanent, the feeling is emptiness. So it's easy for us to move on instead of get stuck with that. And thinking too. Our thinking, one moment we think we have good thinking, another moment we have bad thinking. One moment we have the negative thinking, another moment we have good thinking. So it's interchangeable. It's all kind of thinking there. Now, if we attach, right? Oh, this is mine. This is thinking. This kind of thinking is mine. Am I? We get stuck there. So that when we get stuck, that means if someone says something that not go along with our thinking, we'll be frustrated, we'll be angry. But we say, okay, this thinking is just a thinking. This is in the conventional way. We can let it go. That's okay. We can function ourselves in in noble way, in the comfortable ways. So whether they say good or bad, that's your choice. You understand that? You follow now? Okay, so I think the first part is much understandable, but go up down here is a little bit confusion too, harder to understand. No birth, no death, no beings, no non-beings, no defilement, no purity, no reason, no reason. That's not the levels. The first one is talk about impermanence, right? And now the second level is even there's no birth, even there's no beings. This is even no defilement, no purity. So how are we then? What do you think?
I don't, when it comes to the no birth and no death, no being and no non-being, I think like no birth and no death needs to be like our bodies are just, I guess we were talking about atoms. They're made, our bodies is made up of whatever we ate over the last so many years we've been alive, right? So we've always been something, just not this thing. So it all came from, I guess, the emptiness. You know, maybe at one point in time we were all soul and we came from, like I said, whatever we eat. But the increasing or decreasing, I think no increasing, no decreasing. You know, they say energy cannot be created nor destroyed.
Yes.
One thing to the other. You know, so it doesn't increase or decrease. It's transformed. I guess that's what you're saying. The next level, you trans. Well, I don't know. But I mean, that's the way I see it anyway. But sometimes it's hard to recognize if your thoughts aren't you and just understand, recognize them and I guess in energy form and let them go, just kind of float on by like light coming from a light bulb, project whatever. Can't change.
Jeanette, is this power, right? This power up is understandable, right? It's talk about impermanence of our body, our feeling, our thinking, our habit, and so forth. But this one, not the levels, no birth, no death, no reason, no defilement, no purity, and even that's the idea. There's no samsara of the cycle of birth or no nirvana. That's what meaning is about. Jeanette, in this level of wisdom.
As I understand it, these are that birth, death, being, non-being, those are all ideas. They're dualistic ideas. And emptiness transcends those ideas.
Yeah. And Stephen, do you understand this kind of levels of wisdom? Right.
I did not understand that part a little bit too well.
No.
I struggle with that part a little.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Vivian, do you understand this? Or confusion for you? There's no birth, no death, but you hear, we hear. Why I say no birth or death?
I mean, the way I see it is that because there's always a cycle, it's always a circle. And so what Jeanette said is not like these two things that is not like a line, but things are kind of just keep on going and going. It just feels bigger picture to me. But I guess a question could be like, you said that means there's no cycle of like your soul? Or
okay. Yeah. How about you, William? It's not easy to explain for common people. There's no birth, no death, no defilement, no purity. It's not easy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love the way Jeanette explained it, but yeah, because we're so used to using labels and taking labels as like, I guess, kind of absolute, and drawing distinctions and forgetting that we drew the distinctions. Because, you know, if we were going to really identify birth, we'd have to create a beginning and an end to birth. But there's no real like you can't really create an absolute beginning or end to birth and define it as a separate thing. It would be arbitrary. Whatever point you said, okay, birth is when the feet come out, or is it when the umbilical cord is cut, or is it when the head first appears? Like, that's when birth ends. So it's a useful descriptor. Like it has function to be able to like discuss ideas with each other to accomplish things here. But when it comes to like the ultimate wisdom of the nature of all things, the belief that our ideas, the labels that we give certain things, the belief that those ideas have like separate independent existence, and they're describing something that exists, it's like that's mental activity to maintain that thinking, to defend that thinking, to say no, birth really exists, and let me tell you all the reasons birth really exists and death really exists. But like if we're seeing from a place of like stillness of mental activity, where we're not holding on to distinctions, but we're seeing things as they are, there's like this ever-changing flow. And there's not like within that flow, before our mind before we look at it and we try to find some mark to separate it, like we're looking for a mark to separate that out, where we're saying, oh, this event, when this happens, it's called this. But before we came along and we said that, it was just what it was. Like there wasn't any, in the experience of death, there's no inherent concept of death in death. It's observed and then through memory reflected upon, and then a symbol is used to represent a memory, and then that's kind of built over time. Culturally, it means something, the idea of death, but the concept of death is itself this dependent phenomena that arose from these experiences, going back, generations that we've passed on this concept. But within that concept, it's interdependent. It depended upon all of these different situations. And so it's like a computer program where there's on and off, there's this duality, and then you build up duality enough and you can create a very complex computer program that appears that we can lose ourselves in, like a video game. We can lose ourselves in a video game and get worked up about something in a video game. I think that's a really good example of how we can also just lose ourselves in life, and get really worked up about the ideas that we have about life. I think of a phrase that comes from another tradition, but which really fits this. And it's like, I loose the world from all that I thought it was, releasing the world, but just this acknowledgement that what we think things are, I mean, that's not what they are. That's what we think they are.
Okay. Yeah, Zach, you follow us, Zach?
Yeah, totally.
You understand what we talk about emptiness here, impermanence here? You understand that?
Yeah, I think the emptiness is what I compare it to is the consciousness and creation within the consciousness. It's like a blank piece of paper. And the more you detach from the things that could be written on it, you appreciate the blankness or the emptiness of the paper that is connected and comparing to the consciousness.
Okay, here That is why awareness, body, feeling, perception, mental, formation, and consciousness are not separate from cell entity. That is what this is the wisdom here. The Buddha nature here, cell and entity just mean Buddha nature. The awakened nature here. 18 realms of phenomena where the six sense organs are system, right? The ears, eyes, nose upon the body. This is an object, the sight, the smell, the sound, and so forth. And six consciousness, within our mind, are not separate from that cell entity. That means that here is talk about our pure nature. Our pure nature go beyond the body. It go beyond the defilement and the purity. Go beyond and birth and death. That's what we talk about. Remember, through our ears, we have that kind of hearing nature that go beyond the sound that we use to disseminate. Oh, this good sound, bad sound, good music, bad music, and our side too. That is talked directly to our pure nature. This passage here. And the other passage, it can explain even the same too, the 12 planes of independence arising and so forth, and that's separate from this pure nature. That's why that's the ultimate wisdom. This the sutra talk about. And that's why for this Bodhisattva, he can, even ill beings, because ill beings and so forth, and that's separate from cell activities. That's mean the pure nature of our body, of every one of us. So whoever can see this, no longer needs anything to attend. It recognizes us. It's not, but it's not easy. We understand in the wording, but we have to practice so that we can recognize us. It takes time. So that's why Buddhists who practice inside that bring us, all the shortest mean attain enlightenment, but they don't attach that to enlightenment. If we have the idea of attachment to the enlightenment, we still get stuck there. That's what the idea. It's follow now? Can you follow me? Yeah. So this Bodhisattva could overcome all kind of see no obstruction in the mind, and because there's no more there are no more obstruction in the mind, they can overcome any fear and destroy all wrong perception and realize that perfect nirvana. And all the Buddhas in the past, present, future, they practice this path. They practice this ultimate wisdom to become Buddha. So that's why it's called Heart Sutra. That is more important teaching that condense here in this short sutra here. Of course, for common people, it's not easy to understand. Even would understand, but it's not easy for us to reach to that state of mind. But at least we have this kind of understanding, so that when we see things, when we interact with other things, especially if things are changing moment by moment, we could accept and move on. And even in my class, in my Buddhist class, most of my students, they have some of my students, they have family members who passed away. And so I asked them, how did they feel about that kind of that situation? That definitely it's sad, because they lost their family members. And I asked them that, do you know where will they go? Of course, that's a big question that we don't know, unless we have some kind of sacred power to see through or to see the future, right? So that's a no question. That's why in this passage, in this sutra, we mentioned that yes, we're still here, but one day we have to go. That's because of the common principle. But even we don't have body, or even we have this body, but still important is to recognize this kind of what we call in this sutra is called the cell entities. That means pure nature. We in this this impermanent body, we have that pure nature. It's up to us to know how to use them or not. It's up to us to know how to recognize them or not. Now here, look at this table, right? Look at anything else. If someone, okay, let's say the keyboard or piano, right? Only the one who know how to play piano could make it sound beautifully, right? Because we don't. It makes sense, right? So even we have this microphone. We have this microphone, but if we don't know how to use, like a piece of metal, a piece of plastic. So the point is, this Kapha Sutra says that please don't forget your pure nature, the Buddha nature. We in this impermanent body. So that's why it tries to negate everything. No, your body is impermanent. No, your pureness is impermanent, emptiness, your thinking and so forth. But there's a sense of beings inside your body. That's means your pure nature there. That's why it's called wisdom that go beyond of anything else. Okay. All right. So you understand that? You understand, Vivian? You understand now? Okay. So that's why every day we recite this sutra. It contains sutra to remind us again and again. There is some attached within, since a common goal. Please remember your pure nature. That's what this sutra is about. That's why I say that this is the whole skeleton plan, or the whole map that all the Buddha in the past, present, future to go through. That's why they attain the Buddhahood. That's why they become Buddha. That's why it's called Heart Sutra. Okay. All right. So thank you. Let us stop here today. And next week, I hope that I think we can discuss the different sutra then. All right. So thank you. Yeah. So see you then. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.